101. Thanks, Ty. And if you just give me 1 minute, I will read the rules if you don't mind. Okay, so this is a public meeting, which will be audio and video recorded, just like every other Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Applicants will be asked to present and answer questions pertaining to their applications, and members of the public will be allowed to speak during public hearings. We ask that members of the public not speak outside of the public hearings. To ensure sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute. Commissioners and staff will generally remain on mute, but keep their video on, and members of the public are invited to keep their video on or off, but please keep your video on when you're speaking. And when you do speak, if and when you do speak, please identify yourselves. Okay, ground rules: be respectful, seek first to understand, then be understood, listen carefully, please don't interrupt, stay on topic and speak for yourselves and not others. It's okay to disagree, but remember that these are discussions and not debates. Please be candid and avoid making assumptions, particularly about the intentions, beliefs, or motives of others. So we do have 6 commission members, as I said. We will elevate Anne to voting status if and when she joins us, and Rich as well. So we have a full 7-member voting commission. First item on the agenda is item 3A, which is the regular meeting minutes of December 8, 2022. And I would look for some discussion and or a motion to approve. Adam, you're still on mute.
I'll make a motion that we accept the regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Great. Thanks, Adam and Darrell. Any discussion? Then all those in favor so signify by raising your hand and or saying aye.
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 That motion carries. Great. I see that Annie was just there.
Yeah, I saw her.
Oh, there she is. Annie, we're going to elevate you to voting status for this meeting tonight to round out our 7 voting members. Okay. Great. Agenda item 3B is our special meeting minutes of December 15, 2022, and I would look for some discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the special meeting minutes of 12/15, 2022.
Second.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Darrell. Any further discussion? All those in favor then so signify by raising your hand and or saying aye.
Aye.
And that is great. That motion passes, carries. Okay, so on to agenda item 5B1, which is the next item on the agenda, and this is application numbers 102-22C and 103-22SP, Emery Whistle Jr., 7 Pheasant Road, map 9, block 22, lot 76, storage and processing of logs for the sale of firewood as a major home occupation. So this was, we had heard this as a public hearing in November. We closed the public hearing in November and discussed this further at our December meeting. So now we are in the discussion mode for this application. Ty, is there anything that you would like to start us off with?
No, I mean, we're at the point where the public hearing has been closed. There has been, a little bit of comment from the applicant and maybe others as well, since the public hearing was closed, but I don't think that that can be introduced at this point. So I think there's nothing other than the resolution approval and denial that are before you and drafted, and you can make your decision. if you
Great.
want.
Thank you, Ty. Does anybody want to, do any of the commissioners have anything to say before we maybe deliberate the proposed resolutions?
I'd like to say something, Matt. I looked up what the decibel level was for this firewood processor. And at most it's 85 decibels, which is, if you're the person working it right next to it, it would be the same as the sound of a lawnmower. So, I mean, my opinion is that since the firewood processor itself is further away from the neighboring homes, I really don't have a problem with it if it's operated within reasonable daytime hours. And he said he really only uses it 1 or 2 times a week.
Great. Okay, thanks, Annie.
Look, just to clarify that, and I know that that's what you looked up, but I'm going to tell you right now, I've operated them. They're so far away from a lawnmower in the amount of sound that they put out. And you also have to realize that there's going to be a tractor or a mini excavator, something that's feeding it, that's going along also. But it's not something that you don't put on ear protection when you're using. You know, people don't drive their lawnmowers with ear protection, but you certainly do when you're using those machinery. You know, it's my regular log splitter isn't as loud as that, and I wouldn't operate it without ear protection.
Oh, I'm not with you on that, because we have a
Okay.
log splitter too. But
Adam,
Any
how
other-
would you compare it to a leaf blower in terms of sound?
I think it has to be every bit as loud as a chainsaw.
Okay,
You know, not counting the additional machinery and not counting the hum of the machine itself. But I would say it's a relatively small tractor and a chainsaw running at the same time is what it's going to sound like.
so would you consider that to be excessive noise?
Well, for me, it's would have to do, I think, as you said, Annie, with the hours of operation and the continuous, or the apparent continual nature of the operation, right? So I wouldn't consider it excessively noisy if it were, a couple of hours on, if I live next door to, let's say Daryl was cutting trees on his property, and the people down at just down the hill from him at, what's the name of the development? Brookwoods, thank you. That, if he was doing it for a couple of hours, it wouldn't be a big deal. But if Daryl was doing it every day, the people at Brookwoods might be, irritated by it. If I were living down there, it would bother me. But, it's, that's which we're a rural community and people are, making their living by doing some activity on their properties, and we've got this home occupation regulation, which gives us some leeway to allowing that kind of use. So I think it's a question of, without going too far ahead, without getting too far ahead of everybody, I think it's a question of, it's probably use that should be permitted, but it should be limited to hours and the number of and the amount of time that it's operating. So for me, I'd rather discuss the resolution of approval with conditions as opposed to the resolution of denial. But that's just me.
It's not just you, Matt. I agree with you. I think that's the solution. Excuse me, I don't know if it's if Emery is here tonight, excuse the barking dog. But I'm wondering if we could also ask that the operation be moved on the other side of his property, so that maybe it's not bothering these neighbors that have complained.
Well, I think, like Ty said in the beginning, we can put conditions on the application now, but we shouldn't hear more testimony from the applicant. So I think it's now up to the commission to decide what sort of limits we should put on the operation.
Well, the other question I have, and I asked this last month, was how do we create this policy that is going to affect other people who are doing the exact same thing? Excuse me.
You know what? I don't think that this decision, whatever this decision is, has anything to do with anybody else's property, and it doesn't create a precedence or anything. This is a special permit. And I want to read something at the very beginning of the special permit criteria. In considering an application for a special permit, the commission shall evaluate the application with respect to the following factors. And those are the factors that are on pages 177 and 178 of our current regulations. And it says that we shall evaluate them, which means you have to look at them, you have to read them, and you have to decide which of those are applicable and whether this operation, whatever the special permit is, works within those parameters. It says that I'm trying to figure out where it also said that it also says that on page 179 under 10.450 under decision considerations of a special permit. Number 1, special permit uses are declared to possess such special characteristics that each shall be considered on an individual basis, subject to the standards and requirements of these regulations. And what that means, to me at least, the way I read that, is each special permit that comes before us is evaluated on its own for its own merits, and it doesn't create any kind of a precedent for any following application that comes before us. And that says it right here in our application, right in here in our regulations. It is number 1. So I don't think that this should however we decide, this creates any kind of precedence. That's the purpose of the special permit.
Well, that's probably true, Adam. I know you're reading the regulation, but I'm trying to look at it and be fair. I'm trying to look at it to be fair to all of those who are doing this. And to have one property that's been reported and considered by this commission, and ignore all the other folks who are doing it doesn't seem fair to me. It doesn't seem right.
Well, so to play devil's advocate here, if you go into our meeting folder and you look at the site plan, it's 5B1 site plan. And if everybody opens that up and you take a look at it, what you will see is a very, very, very tight-knit group of houses. They're all right around 1 acre. So anything that happens in one impacts the other. If this was an application where somebody had 20 hours, well, 20 acres, it never would have, even 5 acres, it probably the neighbors would never have made a complaint. The only reason why there's a complaint here is because it's a closer knit group of houses. And that's why we need to look at this. Is this operation compatible with its exact location? And that's what's before us. And our regulations address this. And we're
Alex,
supposed to be
excuse me.
reading our regulations and making decisions based on our regulations. And if we don't like them, then we need to make a new regulation to allow or to disallow something. But we have regulations and they tell us what to do.
Thanks,
They
Adam.
certainly-
Alice,
they-
you look like you wanted to say something. I'm sorry, Karen, I want to
Oh,
give
no, I was just going to point out that we know for sure that there's other locations in town that are on small lots who are doing this. That's all. I'm not disputing what the regulation says. I'm simply trying to be, as I say, fair about it, and interpreting it individually, I think, is difficult. So maybe the solution is to have a regulation that talks about it everywhere, and then that's a much bigger deal, I guess. I don't know.
That might be, it might be something that we have to do.
Alice, did you want to say something a few minutes ago?
Just quickly, I thank you, Adam, for focusing on what the regulations say and reminding us that this is a special permit. It's not an administrative permit. And all these other people that may be thinking they're being treated unfairly, and I kind of am uncomfortable using that word fairness. We don't use that typically in our discussions of things. I just have a question. If 2 years from now, technology enables this homeowner to continue, we give him the permit, and the technology of splitting logs changes, and he can split more logs faster with fewer people, but at 5 times the sound level. I just have a little bit of, that's another reason I think this is a special permit. It is a special situation. And if we're going to write a regulation, and even if we give a special permit, I think we need to, how would I say this? Be sure that the permit requires that they come back to us if anything changes in the process of their business methods, if that's possible. I may not be saying it properly, but I hope you understand what I mean. That if things change, if we give him a special permit based on he works on certain hours with certain type of equipment and certain days of the week, if any of that changes, he needs to be reevaluated. And I really don't see this as a matter of fairness. I'm sorry, if these other people feel unfair, then they can come and apply for a special permit.
No, Alice, I wasn't saying that the other people are being treated unfairly. I'm saying by singling out this property while others are doing the exact same thing in town on same size pieces of land, that that's being unfair. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe fairness and equity doesn't come into planning and zoning. But I just feel that I feel a bit as if this gentleman is being somehow singled out. And that we're gonna keep facing this with other property owners. But if you all are comfortable with it, and you're saying, we're just gonna look at this little tiny parcel right now and make a decision, then that's the way it goes. But it doesn't seem to be an equitable way to handle it.
So I'll say a couple of things. I'll say that, I'm sorry, Dara, you go ahead. I'd say.
Thanks. I wasn't here last month, but I did review the tapes and I thought you guys covered everything pretty comprehensively. I had a question concerning sound though, since that seems to be, the most offending impact of the activity. And we've always had trouble regulating sound. And in some cases, we've said that it's not our purview to regulate sound. As when we were dealing with the concerts at Club Getaway, it's more of a health department and it comes down to a decibel reading, off the property. It seems like the commission, the conditions that you guys came up with cover the parameters that we have the most control over. Sound just, to me, seemed to be something that we're going to have trouble regulating now and determining whether it gets, more impactful later. Hopefully technology would lower the decibel level, but you never know. So sound seems to be a hard thing to hang our hat on if we feel like we've got the other bases covered. If someone wanted to play a recording of a wood chipper for 8 hours in their backyard, we would not be involved. So it seems like sound is something that we need to consider, but can't be the sole guiding principle here as to whether it meets controllable parameters or not.
I generally agree with everything. I agree with Adam that we have to look at these at a case by case basis. I agree with Karen on the other hand, because there are others who we know. I mean, we just know that there are others who are doing the same thing, but I don't think that this commission, this body, is in a position to go and police what's going on other properties. I mean, if we see something and we know something, generally Ty will come to us and just as Donna has done in the past and say, this is what's going on. I don't think it's right. I think we have to address it. The only other way it would come across our bow is if there was a complaint like there is in this case. In some cases, I also believe that, and in this case in particular, we've been put in this position as arbiter between two neighbors. And we wouldn't be in this position as arbiter if the two neighbors had maybe made some concessions when they were having the conversations over the past 5 years. So if the one neighbor if they had each done something differently, we might not be hearing this tonight. But because of the way they each behaved, it came to this head, and now we're arbiters. And I hate to be an arbiter between two property owners, but our job is to look at the regulations, as Adam said, and decide on this particular application. And Alice, your concern, I think, is mitigated by the fact that any change to anything that they do that's permitted by the special permit, they're required to come before us if they change the type of equipment. And they've outlined pretty much, the applicant has, what equipment they use. And if they change it at all, they have to come back to us. The applicant, the approval becomes somewhat void. Wes, do you have anything to add?
Well, I do. For me, it's not, we have to, we can only respond to what comes before us. We can't speculate on what's out there. We respond to what comes before us.
Right.
To me, it's not an issue of sound. I think sound is something that that we really shouldn't get involved with. However, trucking storage of wood close to the boundary, unsightly conditions in a small lot. And as it was pointed out, and as I believe, if this were, it's a matter of scale. If this were in a different location, which is why it's a special permit, if this was in a different location on 5 acres, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So, I mean, that's what makes it special. It is where it is. And we're responding to what has come before us. And the issue is that, to me, it's a lot of massive production in a very small area in a tight residential neighborhood.
Annie, any other thoughts? I think that maybe we should look at this resolution of approval and debate that and see whether we can come to some kind of a consensus among the commissioners, but I want to make sure everybody's got a chance to talk before we jump there. All right, so let's go there. So Ty put together this resolution of approval, and after the whereases and the first therefore, which the whereases talk about what we've considered, and the resolution, number 1, considers the factual representations, which include not only oral and written testimony, but the actual submission documents that were made by the applicant. So if we get to number 2, the number 2 in the therefore be it resolved section at near the bottom of page 1, that the utilization of equipment associated with the major home occupation be restricted to Tuesday through Thursday during the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. So this is the first item that goes to the intensity of the use, the noise. I know that I think we have to make a distinction between sound and noise, because our regulations talk about the intensity of noise within the special permit application. It's noise as a nuisance. And then the hours of operation and the fencing and screening. So this is those are the 3 issues that I think we landed on last time, that we wanted to somewhat work in to mitigate the impact to the neighbors. So this is the first one. Is there any thoughts on any additional thoughts on the times, the days, and the durations of this, of permitting this operation?
Well, I do believe the way to control the issues of trucking is to deal with it in a matter of hours or permissible days. So I like that language very much. That deals with that. So that for me is an important item.
And I know that the applicant, Wes, had spoken about how they use this occupation and how they staff and utilize their workforce, engaging in this operation when there are other things that they can't do, when there's no other work someplace else. So they use this as somewhat of a relief valve, or some fallback position in order to keep the workforce busy during the day, during the work days. Does anybody have any thoughts about maybe changing it to go Monday through Friday, but limiting the hours? Or do you think that the 3 days, 8 hours a day? And there was some debate back and forth, right? Do we say 5 days, but only 4 hours a day, or do we say 3 days at 8 hours a day? Does anybody have any real strong opinion, or should we just leave it the way it is?
I don't think 5 days is very restrictive.
You don't think 5 days is restricted?
I don't think 5 days is restrictive. I think that's business as usual.
Okay.
I think that So as Emery said, he uses this as he tries to staff it when he has less to do on a given property. And I agree with restricting him to 3 days, but I'm not sure that we should, and I don't know how we would manage this, or police this, but I kind of feel like if we're gonna say he should be able to do this 3 days, we should let him choose his 3 days. Because he may, everything he does is weather dependent, everything. So if Monday is kind of a rainy day and it's a good day for him to process, and Tuesday and Wednesday are going to be beautiful days and they're great days for him to be out on properties doing his maintenance. The way we have it right now, he can't do that. He can only be there on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So
And I agree with that. And it should be on a weekly basis. It's just limiting the number of days, what days they are. I mean, who cares if it's Monday or Tuesday?
So let me ask you, who's going to police that? I mean, is it the responsibility now of the neighbor to keep track of when they're processing, that's when they're working on the property, and if they work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday, does the neighbor have to call Ty, and does Ty have to run out there and issue a cease and desist order? That sounds like it's too much. That sounds like it's not fair all the way around.
Well, we have that condition on every, we have that situation on every condition that we put, who's going to police it.
I do think that I understand what you're saying, Matt. It does. It kind of puts policing on the neighbor. But we're here because the neighbors were unhappy with the amount of manufacturing and noise coming from the property. And I mean, I don't know the neighbor's work schedule. Maybe they'd prefer Monday and Friday because they're sitting in their office on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I have no idea. And part of this, if I remember right, one of the neighbors, they work at home. And so in the time of year in August and September, when your windows are open, it was very impactful. If this was going on at my house on days that I was working, I don't have air conditioning. We don't want air conditioning, and it would be really impactful. It would make it very difficult for me to talk on the phone to do my work. So if we're going to limit to 3 days, I think Emery would do it 3 days. I don't think he would just decide he's going to do it 4 days or 5 days. He's a pretty straightforward guy.
Just I don't know the applicant, but just remember that he's one of the pair who were tangoing, right?
Absolutely. And look, it behooves him to stick to the 3 days, because if he doesn't and the neighbors start calling Ty, he can have his special permit revoked, because it is a stipulation of the special permit. So it matters to him to stick to 3 days.
I don't think,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
that's all right. I'm jumping in here, Matt. I'm just saying, I was gonna say, I don't think it should matter what 3 days if we decide that's the amount of time he's allowed, because it's an outdoor activity and there's weather. So he could still be in the loss if he can't do this because on the day he's allowed to do it, it's pouring rain or something along those lines. I don't think we need to be that specific. Give him the guideline of hours and number of days a week, and let him figure out what the best days are. And he said in his statement, I think I read that correctly, he doesn't do it on weekends anyways. So it would just be during the week, some couple of days.
Daryl, Annie, any thoughts?
I think that we have to operate from a standpoint that anybody that comes before us is a decent, good person and will operate within the stipulations we set for them.
Yeah, I think the activity is obviously weather driven from a couple standpoints. Might be naive to think so, but if he did have the flexibility of shifting 3 days around, you know, perhaps he and the neighbor in the future could decide at critical points that, you know, some of those work days, if they needed to happen, could be shifted to days that were less impactful to the client at certain points, rather than being locked into something that, you know, doesn't align with either their schedules necessarily in some cases.
Well, that's sounding like a majority. Alice, any any thoughts?
You're on mute, Alice.
So, I mean, specifying Tuesday as opposed to Wednesday is a little bit, it doesn't matter. And it gives him the flexibility. So I would say the more general, the better. 3 days was better than specific days. I mean, you could get really crazy here and say, okay, let's don't even talk about days. Let's just talk about hours. And during the course of a week, and then you could do it at 6 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at night. I mean, we can't manage every second of this business. You know, our job is to manage the use of land. We're land use managers here. And we see some issues with this land being used this way, okay? Because of the nature of the community, which we are also charged to protect. So I think we're headed the right direction, giving him a special permit with some conditions. And if that fails, we'll be right back where we are because the neighbors will do something about it. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yes.
Sure.
I agree with that.
I mean, you have to just keep going back. We are land, this is the land use office. This is about how land in our town is used. And it has to be used for the health and welfare and, goodwill of the town. And the other neighbors, I mean, it hasn't driven people away from that community. We're just yet. So I think what we are doing right now is, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think it's what we're charged to do as commissioners.
Okay, I am definitely in the minority here. I would rather not give the leeway of having any 3 days within a given week, but I understand that that's what the balance of the commission is telling me, or is saying. So I would suggest that number 2 reads something like that the utilization of equipment associated with the major home occupation be restricted to 3 days in any work week during the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
We're gonna have to specify the work week being Monday through Friday.
Can we say weekday? And with any
I think we could say weekday.
utilization of equipment.
My work
associated
week
with
is not necessarily held to Monday through Friday, so I think if we say weekday, then. it's
Okay.
weekday.
That's great. So, okay, so be restricted to 3 weekdays during the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Does that work?
And let me just understand again, Matt, you would be more comfortable if we said which days those are?
Yeah, so that way there's no question. That way, if
Okay.
if they're operating on Monday, then it's a clear violation. But
Okay.
now somebody has to pay attention to which days they worked already and how many more days there are in the week, and it just puts more onus on others as opposed to the onus being on the applicant. But I understand what you've all said, and I think with that change, we can move on to number 3, if that's okay with everybody.
Yes.
That a 6-foot tall solid fence be erected along property lines noted on the general location survey as northwest to run a midway distance from Pheasant Run, and southwest to run from northwest corner at Pheasant Run to driveway entrance. This satisfies for me, this satisfies the screening requirement.
That satisfies me as well.
Me too.
Me also.
And there should be no question with regard to the safety, any safety issues that having a fence in those locations would present.
I think the way we wrote it, it really does go along the, it goes along the property line. There's no egress there or anything like that. It's a solid fence between those two particular properties that are on the side of the house that has the operation going on.
And then the fence that runs along Pheasant Run Road from the corner to the driveway.
So, Ty, were you saying that there could be some issue on sightline distances from the driveway due to that fence?
That was brought to my attention at one point after the public hearing was closed.
And what do you think on the location for sightlines as you pull out?
It is it's like a dirt road, if I remember it. It's not something that anybody should be driving fast on. So if
Right.
everybody's careful, it should be okay.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion on that.
Right.
It's
not like it's Route 7 and this is a commercial vehicle pulling out. Right.
it's a pretty little road with, by the time you get to Emery's house, there's one house with a driveway, two houses with a driveway after his driveway. I mean, we're just talking about really limited amount of traffic, but we could say in the description of the fence that the fence stops, 10 feet before his driveway to allow for a better sight line.
Well, I think that's a reasonable inclusion on the fence along Pheasant Lane. Obviously, you want to take it all the way to the driveway.
Right.
So then as a potential modification, that 3 would read that a 6-foot tall solid fence be erected along property lines noted on general location surveys as northwest to run a midway distance from Pheasant Run and southwest to run from northwest corner at Pheasant Run to within 10 feet of driveway entrance.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's reasonable. And that should, if there is any sightline issue, that should solve it.
Great. Karen, any thoughts?
No, not really. I'm just thinking about how this impacts his business. But I guess that's the best we can do, and that's what we do. I don't know what else to say. I think some of the points that Daryl made about noise, it keeps coming back into my head. Like, we don't really regulate noise, but here we are, we're regulating it to a degree. No, I think it's probably the best we can do.
we don't regulate noise, but noise of an operation is specifically noted in one of the criteria that we need to consider for a special permit.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay, Daryl, if you've got nothing, no comments, then let's move on to 4. And Annie, you're okay, right? Okay, good. And the last one that is somewhat application specific is is number 4, that the existing vegetative buffer be maintained along all property lines. And this goes back to the discussion where the fence will run along that northeast run, where it ends, there's that line of trees there in between the 2 adjoining properties. So that was the purpose, or that was the thought process behind this number 4.
I remember that. I think that's a good. I don't think Emery or the neighbor would want any of that to go away anyway. So I think it's an easy one to have in there.
Okay, all right, and then number 5 and number 6 and number 7 really get to Alice's question from earlier. You know, any changes in the information presented during this application shall require modification, and each condition attached to the special permit is integral to the approval, and in violation of any conditions may be grounds for revocation. I would say it's, will be grounds for revocation, but I think this is our standard language. So it's, as far as I can tell, or as far as I'm concerned, I think this resolution of approval is satisfactory to me as modified.
I concur with that.
Ty, do you have enough information? The modifications that we're talking about are clear enough, right, for you to?
I've got them. Yep.
Okay. Then, at the risk of moving too quickly, I would look for a motion to approve the application in accordance with the resolution of approval.
We're not going to read through the resolution of denial.
I don't think we need to, Adam. It's my opinion that we don't need to, because we all seem to be on the same page and working towards this resolution of approval. Now, again, that's so it's one person's opinion. So if others think that we should read and work through the resolution of denial, then maybe we should do that.
Whether we do or not, that's up to you. I would love to approve this, but I can't. The regulations clearly tell me that I can't. They're right here. They're written in that resolution of denial, and they tell us why we can't approve this application. Everybody can read it differently, but I can't vote for the resolution of approval because our regulations say I can't.
That's interesting. I disagree with that. I think that the
That's very possible.
I think that the conditions that we put on the approval satisfy the issues that we've got with the resolution that are brought up in the resolution of denial.
They may. The whole thing about, we're commissioners to read the regulations, but how everyone reads the regulations and interprets them is different. And that's why there's 6, 7, however many commissioners we have, because we're all going to look at them a little differently. I just know
Yeah.
what I read when I read this, and I'll explain why I said that. So as I said, at the top of page 177 under 10-440, it says that the commission shall evaluate the application with respect to the following factors. And it gives us 11 factors that we have to look at and determine if any of those factors are applicable to this, to any given application that's before us. So this particular application, I see having a number of things here that are applicable. So number 3, the overall neighborhood compatibility, whether the proposed use will have a detrimental effect on the neighboring properties or the development of the district. So we often look at this and say, in this very small, close-knit, 1-acre group of homes, having a firewood processing operation that's processing 50 or 60 cords a year, is this going to have a detrimental effect on the neighboring property?
Well,
And that's
the
something
answer
that we have to
clearly-
consider.
The answer to that is clearly yes.
Okay,
But
yeah,
that's why we spent the last 20 minutes talking about the conditions of approval. And it's my opinion that the noise, that the hours of operation, and that the fence, and that the, hold on, and the vegetative buffer, maintaining those 3 things mitigate the objections to number 3 in my eyes.
absolutely. And they might. I'm just stating, these are the things that we have to consider. And
Absolutely.
so number 4, is it a suitable location for this use? Whether the nature and intensity of the operation involved with the use or resulting from the proposed use and the location of the site are such that the use will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development in the district in which it's located.
And, clearly the answer is no,
No,
but do the conditions of approval mitigate?
Right.
Do
They
they
might.
mitigate what this says? And again, I believe that they do. That's why, for me, that's why I was so careful to
no,
look.
I know you were very careful. I know.
And honestly, when this first came in front of us, I didn't want any part of it. I thought that absolutely no. But, looking at it and hearing the testimony and listening to everybody else talking, it was, for me, I tried to find a way to make it work. And I think what we've done in this sort of makes it work. But so this is really important, Adam. So keep going.
And so the only other one that I really see that has something that we have to consider is number 9, which is nuisance avoidance. Whether the use configuration, design, and or hours of operation are appropriate in order to control noise, light, odors, parking, visibility, unsightly appearance, erosion, water contamination, stormwater runoff, et cetera, in relation to the surrounding area, which clearly the resolution for approval does address that clearly.
So let's not stop there though, Adam. Let's go to the considerations of the site plan application. So if we go to 10.355 and run through the supplemental site plan considerations, which goes through A through I.
I have to get to them.
Okay, great. It's on 171.
I'm getting there. It
So
always
I'll-
takes my computer a minute.
Fine, I'll start and then.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so these are conditions of the site plan application, and 10.355 starts: before the commission may approve a site plan application, it must determine that the application is in conformance with these regulations. And supplemental site plan considerations, they start out with A. Well, the preamble is: the commission may require as a condition of approval such modifications of the proposed plans as it deems necessary to ensure that structures and the uses of land are arranged in a manner that protects the public health, safety, and general welfare. In addition to all of the requirements of these regulations, the commission shall consider the following. A, the general conformity of the site plan with the intent of the town's plan of conservation and development. However, the plan of conservation, the plan development shall not take precedence over the specific provisions of these regulations. So general conformity with the plan of conservation and development. There we take into account the arrangement of building structures and uses on the site, the adequacy of access for fire, police, and ambulance service. I think this is an important one. And I think that looking at the roads and looking at the site, I think that there is adequate access for emergency services.
I agree with that.
Adequacy of water, sewage disposal, treatment, and other public facilities. I don't think that is germane. Location, intensity, and direction of outdoor lighting. I think this is managed by the hours of operation.
I agree.
Size, location, and type of outdoor storage facilities, including dumpsters. So this is definitely outdoor storage facilities. We're talking about the storage of logs and firewood, which can be mitigated by the conditions of approval. The next series is traffic considerations. We talked about the visibility in both directions of exit points.
I don't think we have traffic considerations there.
Okay. But we certainly have environmental considerations, right? Protection, preservation of environmental quality. Following items of site plan be evaluated by the commission to determine their conformity with these standards. Location, height, and material of walls, fences, hedges, plantings. Prevention of dust and erosion through the planting of ground cover. Preservation of natural attributes. It's not really germane. Design and arrangements of buildings is not germane. Storm drainage. Adequacy of landscaping treatment. Impact of noise, odors, and lighting, and dust and smoke. And the provision of adequate storm and surface water drainage facilities. So Adam is definitely right that we as a commission, as individual commissioners, have to decide whether we've considered all of these things and whether the conditions that we put on our possible approval satisfy our consideration and mitigate the concerns coming out of the regulations.
And just to add to, and I think I already said this, in 10.450 on page 179, a few pages forward in regards to special permits. So everybody does know that special permits are considered completely on an individual basis, and this doesn't set a precedence. If somebody else brings us a special permit for a similar type of operation, what we decided here doesn't have impact on that next application, because we look at that application as its own standalone situation. That's number one. And number three, we're asked basically three things. It says, before the commission may approve a special permit application, it must determine that the application A has satisfied the applicable special permit criteria in section 10.440 of the regulations, and B, is in conformance with other applicable provisions of these regulations, which it certainly is. And C, is in harmony with the purposes and intent of these regulations. And that's just where, you know, I think we have a great resolution of approval, but I keep going back to the special permit criteria. And if I was living next door and having noise all day and trying to run my business from there, from inside my house, I would have a very hard time doing that. I'd have to close all the windows in the summer. You know, so I'm glad that we're limiting it to 3 days, you know, but what we do is we force a neighbor to endure noise or close their windows or get a air conditioner to put in their house if they don't have one. And on October 7th, when they put their house up for sale and somebody comes to look at their house, and I'm just pulling October 7th out of the sky, you know, because that's right in a time when there's firewood processing going on next door. I don't believe that having a firewood processing operation going on next door doesn't impact the sales price or the sellability of that property. I'm not in real estate. This is just what I think. So I feel like this does impact the neighbors significantly.
Well, I am in real estate.
Yeah.
And my dog is gonna start barking every time I talk. And I will tell you that's very subjective, okay? Because there will be people that say, no way, ma'am, I'm not buying next to this. There will be other people that say, I don't care. And I don't think we should be the judge of that. And also the property owner with the wood splitting situation also has some rights. And we mustn't forget about that. And, you know, I got to say, I was sitting here this morning on my computer doing work from home, and my lovely neighbor whose home is under construction, between the beeping of the trucks and the running of the bulldozers and the smashing of the rocks. So how much are we going to try to control? I mean, I had to put up with it. We have this narrowed down very finely, 3 days a week with the hours, no weekends. We have to be fair to both parties. See, I'm sorry, Alice, don't mean to say the word fair again, but that's how I'm looking at it. Okay. We can't just we could be forever listening to cases where people call up and say, I don't like the noise next door. I could have done it today. Let's not get crazy. We've done a very good job trying to find a solution for these two neighbors, I think. And I think this is equitable for both of them. This guy who's complaining about the noise doesn't have to listen to it every day. And the gentleman who's trying to make a living to support his family, we've squeezed down as much as we can for him to be able to do that there. He's going to increase costs with the fencing and the landscaping and the hours. I wouldn't be surprised if he calls up and says, forget it. It's not even worth it. But whatever. I think we've done a very good job, and I think we should approve it as it is and stop the torture.
Well, in the end, that's why we have 7 commissioners. And that's why the majority carries the case. So that's what it is. And everyone has their own opinion, but that's why we have 7 commissioners.
So with all of that said, I think that, Adam, you know, thank you for walking us through the regulations. I think it's really important that we all understand what we're talking about. And I think it's yeah. So thank you for that. I think we've gone through with the discussion tonight and the discussion last month and the discussion in November. We've addressed all of the pertinent issues, sections of the regulations that we should be paying attention to. So now I think I would just look for,
Excuse
Yeah.
me, Matt,
Yeah.
before you do that, there's waivers with regard to the site plan. You might want to address that first.
So, are there, I didn't see that application for waivers in the, is it there, Ty, that I just missed?
It is there. Would you like me to just read you which
Sure.
numbers they're asking to waive?
Please.
That would be great.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Which would be,
You want me to,
if we don't have it in front of us,
okay, so 4 is the site development plan showing, and then it's got the series, it's pretty long. I don't know if you want me to read it, I'm happy to, but the series of the different requirements there.
Hey, Ty, before you go on, what's the file called in the Google Drive?
Would be under 5B1, and then I would imagine it would be just the site plan application or applications in general.
Okay, let me see if I can't, 5B17 application and legal notice. Okay, so let me see if I can do this and then this. What's everybody looking at?
Yep.
All right, so what are the numbers again? So this is number 4.
4, yeah,
Site plan development showing the existing and proposed buildings, the existing and proposed driveway, the existing and proposed grading, locations of wetlands, location of any proposed signs. 5 is the utility plan. 6 is the landscaping plan.
Right.
7 are architectural plans and elevations. 8 is construction notes and details. 9 is zoning information table. 10 is offsite information, location of buildings, parking areas, and curb cuts and adjoining properties. They've generally given us that with their site plan, with the the impact analysis of the development upon water supply and storm drainage and sanitary sewers, location of stone walls, archaeological resources and scenic views. And 13 is all applications for special permits, more than 25 dwelling units or 50 spaces or 200 square feet. This doesn't sound germane.
does not apply. Yeah, that looks right.
All right, great. So I'm stopping my share, and then I would look for a motion to accept the request for waivers.
I'll move that we accept the waivers as stated.
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor, so signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Great. That's unanimous. Okay, thanks, Ty, for keeping us on track there. And then so the next thing is and as a point of order, I think that whoever makes the motion can make whatever motion they want. Right? So if somebody wants to make a motion to deny, they make a motion to deny. If they have a second, then we vote on it. And if that motion to deny fails, then the application is approved. Right? I don't think we have the opportunity to go through and look at a resolution of approval at that point. So I think that it makes sense to start with the resolution.
No, I think we have to, something isn't approved just because we don't deny it. The only way something is approved is if the commission votes to approve it. If
You think
you don't
that's
have
right?
enough people to vote for approving it, then it's automatically denied, but it doesn't work the other way. The commission
Jonathan,
has
do you
to
agree with
vote
that?
to approve for it to be approved.
Okay, John, let me do some research on that, Mike. We can come back and talk about that at a subsequent meeting. Just want to make sure that my understanding is right. And Okay, so let's make a motion here.
So I would make a motion to approve, and I'm sorry that I'm not organized here with all the backup. To approve the motion as we have modified it in our discussions. And I'm sorry, I don't have that, but that would be my motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Ty, are you comfortable with that motion? Okay, that's
Yes, I've
great.
got it.
Okay,
The motion is basically to approve the resolution of approval.
Yes,
With-
as modified. As
Modified.
we
As
have
modified.
modified in our discussions.
Right, okay.
okay, and Adam or Daryl, you're okay with that clarification?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second, and then a clarification to the motion and a second to the clarification of the motion. Any further discussion? Then I will call the vote. All those in favor, so signify by raising your hand and or saying aye.
Aye.
So I've got Wes and myself and Ann and Daryl and Karen, ayes, and Alice. So, okay, so myself and Wes and Alice and Ann and Daryl and Karen as ayes, and any opposed? And that's a nay from Adam. And that's the 7 of us. And I'm assuming that there cannot be any abstentions. So 6 in favor, 1 opposed. Motion carries. That was certainly more of a robust conversation than I was expecting tonight, but I continue to be happy with our deliberations, and thank everybody for sticking with it and being so willing to engage in the discourse. Okay, okay. We've got agenda item 6A1, which is a public hearing. And this is the application numbers 118-22 SP and 117-22 C. Susan Hugh and Jeffrey Kane Weiser, trustees, 100 North Main Street, map 19, block 42, lot 1, renovation of existing barn into 2-bedroom accessory dwelling. And let me read the legal notice. What? Read only? Make changes? Okay, fine. The Town of Kent Planning and Zoning Commission shall hold a public hearing via Zoom meeting on Thursday, January 12th, 2023, beginning at 7 p.m. to discuss and possibly act on application numbers 118-22 SP and 117-22 C. Susan Hugh and Jeffrey Kane Weiser, trustees, 100 North Main Street, map 19, block 42, lot 1, renovation of existing barn into 2-bedroom accessory dwelling unit. Any corresponding documentation will be attached to the agenda, which can be found on the town's website. At this hearing, persons may participate and be heard. And then it goes on to talk about the Zoom meeting number, which can be located on the official agenda on the town's website, a minimum of 48 hours prior to the Zoom meeting. Matthew Winter, chairman. Look at that. So I will open the public hearing at 8:16 PM. And I would, I guess, ask Ty if you want to just tee us up here. Is there anything that you'd like to tell us about the application?
Yeah, so it's an existing structure and they're looking to, it's a barn, that's existed for a very long time on the property and they're looking to, change it into an accessory dwelling unit. This is in the area of the sewer district, sewer, water and well, and he was to meet with the commission this past week, but that didn't happen. So the public hearing can continue to go forward, but I would recommend to keep it open to allow for the sewer commission's decision next week on whether they can hook up with regard to this application.
And then there was nothing, there was no reason for them not to go to the sewer commission meeting, right? There's no new information that they had to pass on that we should be concerned about.
No, I think they just weren't prepared. I'll let him explain that to you.
Okay.
He was just looking for some more information for his plan that they did not have ready.
Got it.
Do you want me to speak on that? Sorry.
Yes, would you, Mr. Corrigan, just identify yourself and let us know who you are and then absolutely take us through the application.
Sure. So my name is Andrew Corrigan. I'm a project architect with Stone Fox Architects who's working on this project. Thanks a lot for seeing the application. The sewer is purely an issue of scheduling and getting the third party to come locate the existing sewer lateral and getting the engineer to provide the required drawings. So we're just hoping to get that as soon as possible, but weren't able to get it in time for the last meeting.
Okay, great, thanks.
Sure.
Anything that you want to tell us about the application before we start to think about it ourselves and then ask the public for comment?
Sure. Do you want me to walk through the drawings themselves, or do you want me to just narrate? Whatever you'd like me to do.
I think give us an overview first.
Sure.
Is it okay if I call you Andrew?
Oh, absolutely. Of course.
So yeah, Andrew, just give us an overview first and then we can start that discussion and then invite the public.
Great. Thank you. So there is an existing barn on the property that is currently unoccupied. There's nothing in it. And the client would like to renovate the barn into what would be considered an accessory dwelling unit, mainly to serve the existing pool that's there on their property. So it would be adding a, as shown in the drawings, it's 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a gym. There's minimal work to the site besides a small amount of landscaping, which would extend the hedge around the pool with a fence, just to make it a little more kind of work a little bit better with the barn as an accessory dwelling unit. There's no change to any grading or any enlarging of a drive or anything like that. It would just be connecting utilities. And we would also just move the pool equipment, which is currently located in the barn itself. We would just move it outside directly adjacent to the pool and screen it with a hedge that would be essentially just continue the hedge that's there. So that's the extent. There's no change to the footprint of the barn. There's no change to the massing of the barn. There are some changes in the fenestration in the windows that we were approved by the Architectural Review Board at their most recent meeting. But there would be no change to the barn footprint itself.
Great. Is there any members of the public would like to speak about the application? I don't hear anybody or see anybody. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ed.
Ed, yeah.
Hi, Matt. Edward Matson. Right now I'm the take care of the lawn at that residence. And I would just like to say that the lateral for the sewer line comes out of the front of the house. So that doesn't affect anything, I don't think, as far as hooking into the barn. Wouldn't be a major process. And I'm excited to see this barn getting renovated and being used. I think it's good for them and good for the town of Kent. That's my only comment.
All right, thanks, Ed. Anybody else from the public? And in which we'll come back to, Tim, you just came off mute.
Yeah, hi Matt, Tim Seller. I'm the contractor on the job, and you know, reviewing the plans, we're really trying to keep this as a barn-like structure, but rehab it enough so it'll hopefully stay up for another 100 years and continue to beautify, you know, downtown Kent. I think this is a good project to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. I would ask the members of the commission if you've got any comments or questions for the applicant. Then I will, following somewhat along the lines with what Adam was reminding us of in our last conversation. This is a special permit application, and it's a special permit application because in our regulations, a detached accessory dwelling is permitted in the VR1 via special permit. So that's why this is coming before us as a special permit. So, you know, as I do usually, I go through and determine what the request is, and it's a detached accessory dwelling. And is it a permitted use? And the answer is yes, by special permit, by regulation section 3134-4. Is a change of use required? The answer is no. There's considerations of the VR1 district in section 3100. The question is, does it satisfy the setbacks within the underlying district? What are the parking requirements within that underlying district? We're also in the Kent Village Overlay District. So two of the provisions there are that we need Architecture Review Board approval, which the applicant has indicated, and when we see the letter from the ARB that they've received approval. And then there's a consideration for parking in the Kent Village Overlay District. And that's what I saw. And then we have to go through the considerations of the special permit in section 1040. And does the application address the special permit criteria, number 1s through 11 in 10.440 that Adam dragged us through a few minutes ago, and in 10.450, does the application address the special permit criteria design considerations 1 through 10? And then has the Planning and Zoning Commission considered the section 10.355 A through I of our regulations that we painstakingly went through before? So those are the things that I want to draw to our attention so that we consider. Ty has told us that we really should be waiting for the next meeting to get information back from the Sewer Commission. So I think we've got some time to consider these things. But I would like to ask a couple of questions based on all of that. So the setbacks, right? So the setbacks, they're not building anything outside of the existing footprint, right? The barn will stay the same. You're not going to take the walls down, right? You're using the same footprint of the existing barn.
That's correct.
And then And then the pool is pre-existing. That's, I understand, right? So that pool has been there and the pool equipment has been there. I understand you're relocating that pool equipment, but you're not changing the footprint of that pool either.
That's correct.
Because both the pool and right, the pool is subject to setback requirements, right, Ty? They would generally would be.
Yes, they would.
Okay, so, you know, both the pool and the barn and the house for that matter doesn't conform to the, you know, they didn't intuit back in, you know, 200 years ago that they were too close to the property line.
Right.
I wonder though, is there provisions you're meant to have 2 dedicated parking spaces for this new use? And I think that I would like you to delineate or designate those parking spaces on the site plan.
Sure.
And then this question is for, you know, Ty, who has, and that they're working within the regulated area. And that regulated area is because of the creek that runs along the back behind the pool.
That's correct, within the 200-foot setback.
So do we have to, I know that there's some disturbance between the barn and the existing house to connect the sewer and to connect I think that's the electric utility trench to the main house, a new water line at the main house, and the septic at the main house to then tie back into the street. And that work is going on between the barn and the house. But there's also that new landscaped area. Do we have to concern ourselves, Ty, with that, with the new raised planter beds for the vegetable garden and the new gravel area, or is that? I think what you've determined that's minor enough that you
Yeah.
can issue that permit on your own.
Right, exactly. With regard to the wetlands issues, the disturbance is minimal just for, you know, trenching and whatnot. And I feel like that's something an agent permit, once he applies and I see it on paper, I think that an agent permit can be issued for that. You know, just making sure that all the proper erosion control is in place, and then it'll be fine.
Okay, great. And then the last question that I have for the applicant is with regard to lighting and our general desire for the dark night sky in the rural area. So could you talk to us a little bit about the lights that are happening on the outside of the building?
Sure. So we would have probably some minimal path lighting that would lead from the existing drive that are, I believe, noted on the plan over to the building, which would be down lights that would conform with the, you know, one of the accepted kind of lighting fixtures that are shown. And then we don't have a finalized lighting plan for the site, but since the new doors, so one of the things we tried to do was with the new kind of windows and doors that we're adding, that there are some large French doors on that south side. We're going to keep the sliding barn doors. So, you know, we wouldn't have the location of typical sconces adjacent to the door because the sliding barn doors would prevent that. So there would be pretty minimal lighting on the barn itself. And if we did do sconces, they would need to conform, obviously, with the town's regulations.
Fine. And then speaking about those, the steel and glass doors, which are on both that, what is that, the east and the south elevations roughly?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Is there any provisions being made to mitigate the light bleed from inside through those big windows at night?
So we talked a little bit about that in the architectural review board, and the two locations on the south do have the sliding doors, the sliding barn doors that could go in front of them. But we would have, since the east doors, we would want to mitigate light also coming in. We don't have a finalized interior plan with curtains, but we would also be attempting to to put up something there, some kind of window treatment that would, minimize the UV that's coming in as well. So I just don't want to say that we have a definite plan when we don't have an approved interior plan yet, but the intent would not be to just let that light, bleed out into the landscape at night.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else from the commission have any questions or comments that they'd like to make at this time? Any members of the public who are listening? Yes, Ed.
About 8 years ago, the Britons got a special permit for me to clean the brook up. Clean it out because it was totally overridden with silt and stuff. And it was determined then by the surveyors and agreed upon by the town that that was not considered a brook or wetlands. It was considered a seasonal brook. Just so for the record, it would be known that it is not considered a brook, but a seasonal brook with no wetlands involved.
I understand what you're saying. I don't know that I don't have enough information or the expertise to say whether that's true or not. I defer to the Inland Wetlands Commission for that, Ed. So
Sure, just so you,
yeah, understand what you're saying.
thanks.
Anybody else? I'm going to suggest that we leave the public hearing open. Is there anything that any of the commission members would like to see or like answered for our next our February meeting? Then I think Andrew, what we're waiting for is confirmation from the sewer commission.
Right.
And we will have another, so we'll leave the public hearing open in case we have additional questions for you next time, so we can receive some additional information from you. At which point I would expect, but it can't guarantee that we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll start our deliberations on approval.
Well, plus the site plan will also be.
Good for you, Wes. Okay, so then I would look for a motion to continue the public hearing. Is that the right word? To continue
To
the
table
public
the
hearing.
public hearing until the next regular meeting.
And a second.
Second.
Thanks, Daryl. Daryl got it, Adam, because you were on mute. Then I would then look for a motion to now table this application until our next regularly scheduled meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second,
Second.
and that's
Never
Adam.
get it.
And then any further discussion? Then great, thanks, Andrew, and we'll see you in a few weeks, several weeks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, so let's close this. And then we are going to 6B1, which is the discussion of this this application, which I don't think that we need to I guess that's what we just did, right? 6B1, we discussed it and tabled it, and we'll talk about it next time. 6B2, acceptance of the resignation from regular member David Birnbaum with sadness. I heard his resignation and then read his letter. So he was a great addition to our commission, and we're sad he's not here with us anymore, but wish him the greatest luck in Iowa. Any other comments? Do we have to make a motion, Ty, to accept that?
Yes.
All right, then
Yes,
look for
please
a
do.
motion to accept David's resignation?
I make a motion that we accept David's resignation.
Second,
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor, so signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion carries. 6B3, possible elevation of alternate to fill a regular member vacancy. I don't think that we are. I don't think that the alternate in attendance tonight is ready to be elevated to full voting, to full member, although I'm happy if you changed your mind between before and now, Ann.
Yeah, I've already talked to Ty about it and I'm happy where I am, but thank you.
okay, great.
Thanks, Annie. Thanks for being here. Okay, and then so recommendations for an appointment to fill the alternate position that was vacated by a member, vacated by me as I was elevated to full member at Mark's resignation.
Well, I had recommended Chris Harrington. But some people wanted some time to see if they could find another person who would be interested also.
So we have got a full member position to fill and an alternate position to fill. I think it makes sense to fill the alternate position.
I agree.
So
So the alternate position will be recommended to the Board of Selectmen to fill that, and the member position, you will fill your own position. Just for clarification. So you directly fill the member. The alternate is a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
okay, so Adam, do you want to make that motion to recommend to the Board of Selectmen Chris Harrington as an alternate?
I make that motion that we recommend Chris Harrington to the Board of Selectmen to fill an alternate spot.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Then I'll call the vote. All those in favor, so signify by raising your hand and or saying aye.
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 Okay, that's great. That and any opposed? Okay, great. So that motion carries. So we will await the decision of the Board of Selectmen. They generally follow our recommendations in most cases. Okay, so fine. Then just as so to fall out from this, we should be considering somebody for that full member position. And it would be great. I know that we have all been sort of thinking about the alternate position. Let's continue to think about the full member position, somebody who would be a good addition to the group.
And Matt, what is the process for that? Do the commissioners vote or?
It would be similar to the process that we just went through. We would, that's with luck, there would be 2 or 3 people who we would consider, and we would talk about them, and if we had more than one, is there ever a time, Ty, that we would interview them as they set up a subcommittee for interviewing a full commission member?
Yeah, I mean, we can arrange for that if that's something that you want to do.
So I think we would play that by ear. Yeah, Alice.
Matt, perhaps there was a resume or bio of something of Chris. I didn't see it. It doesn't matter. But I think rather than just recommending the name, there does need to be some information about that person. I know he was well known by many of you, and that's great. But I think we just don't vote on a name. At least I would be more comfortable for a full position that it's in our hands and not in the selectmen, that we know something about this person and why they would be a good person to the. And I was the one at the last meeting that, and I've been asking, I can't tell you how many people I've been searching. And one of the interesting things is that to be a commissioner, the only real requirement is that you vote in our public elections in the town of Kent, which I thought is kind of interesting. I don't know if you knew that.
I thought you had to reside in the town of Kent.
No, you do not.
Huh.
I don't think, do you have to actually vote, Alice, or do you just have to be able to vote?
You have to be able to vote.
You
as
have to
far as-
register to vote in Kent.
You're registered to vote here.
I thought you
It's a
had,
requirement that you
it's funny, I
actually-
thought you had to reside in Kent, because I remember when Steve Penner originally left the commission, he left because he was moving out of town. He still worked here, and I think he was still a registered voter here, but he had to leave the commission because he was not going to reside in Kent. And of course, he,
Well, I talked to Darlene about it, and she said essentially it's voting that's the important thing.
she's the one who knows.
Yeah, she does.
Yeah.
Donna, maybe you know. You're on mute, Donna.
See, she hasn't done this for a while, and she can't remember how.
I just wanted to share that with you all because there were a number of names on my list of people I wanted to chat with. And before 3 of them, I had to just take off my list because they don't vote here. They have property here, they pay tax, but they don't vote here.
I wonder if being a registered voter is what, well, that is what determines residency.
Yeah,
Hey, Donna,
and
if
for this purpose, anyway.
you're not able to come off mute, can you put the statutory reference in the chat? There isn't one. Okay.
Hi, Jean.
Hi, all.
Oh, there
So,
she is.
so Donna just texted me that she's frozen, so she just can't do anything at this point.
I have
All
a,
right.
I have a question. Have we thought to ask Rich, who is an alternate, if he would want to be a full commissioner? Maybe part of his lack of showing up is because it's not as exciting to be an alternate. Maybe he would do it if he was a full-fledged commissioner. Just an idea.
That's a good idea. I know Rich fairly well. I will ask him that question.
If he becomes a commissioner, he has to come to the meetings.
Right.
Right, but I'm thinking maybe he'd be more willing to do that, more motivated, because I think being an alternate is kind of tough, you know.
I don't know. I was an alternate for a lot of years. I never had a problem with it. There were some really nice things about being an alternate because you listened and you could make comments, but you didn't have to vote unless you were pushed up for that purpose. It was kind of a nice thing.
I didn't like it.
So I got done.
It's a different reason.
Well, it's a time commitment, either way, and maybe
is.
if you don't have anything to say, or, I don't know. I'm just thinking that might be a solution.
But
So
I
just
think-
to,
Go ahead, Ty.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna chime in as to what Donna was going to say, because she sent it to me in a text. So she said you have to be a registered voter, and in order to be a registered voter in town, you have to live in town. To vote at referendums, you have to own property worth more than $1,000, and it's not necessary to live here.
Right.
Right, and the ordinance under planning and zoning section 11-1 subsection 3 says planning and zoning commission shall consist of 7 members who shall be electors of the town, which is what Ty just said.
Right.
There you go.
Okay.
Good. I think Alice's point is well taken, that let's know if there's a couple of candidates, let's have a, even if it's not a written bio, it's somebody who can speak for the person and tell us who they are and what they do and maybe what their qualifications could be. But I think that's a reasonable request.
It wouldn't be bad to have, if we have more than one person, why not have them come into a meeting and so we can have an interview with them.
Yeah, the Board of Finance just did that for their open seat. They had a couple of people who were interested. They sent in a letter of interest and they interviewed. They chose a number of folks to interview in an executive session and then so similar fashion.
Great. Okay, so then let's go on to agenda item 6B5, which is the 824 referral, Kent Commons Playground Project. And this is coming to us as a statutory requirement because the Board of Selectmen felt that this was significant enough that we should review it as part of our review of the projects as they relate to the POCD. Ty, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, not so much. I mean, I did do a staff report on it and I noted for your convenience, the parts of the POCD that do mention this playground and the need for its improvements. So there were several areas where it was picked up as part of your plan to improve. So I'll let Jared or Jean present whatever they have as far as plans for the playground.
And I'll defer to Jared. I'm here for the letter piece that the board needed to submit.
Hey, Jared.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us. For those who don't know me, my name is Jared, and I'm the director of Parks and Rec for the town. And so just to give you a brief background, the playground at Kent Commons Park is basically it's outdated. It's very small. It's really not conducive for much play at all. It's been stripped down a little bit over the years, it looks like, of other amenities. So what's left is really just not attractive at all. It sees very few residents visiting it. I'm sure there are days where no one goes to it at all. And so when I came in, it was one of the things that, along with the commission, we identified as something that really needed to be improved. And apparently the commission had in the past as well, because there was $100,000 in the capital plan to replace that playground. So over the past few months, we went out to bid and received a few bids back. And we made a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to go with a proposal by a company called Creative Recreation, which they design and install playgrounds for Miracle Recreation, which is a pretty well-known playground manufacturer. And so I spoke with Ty about it, and she let me know that this was the next step to come and talk to you guys about it. And so that's why we're here, happy to answer any questions, and really looking forward to hopefully moving the process along and having a playground installed hopefully by the middle of the year, so we can get people back out to our parks. So Julia Neff, who's the Rec Commission Chairwoman, she's on as well. Julia, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add, but I did just want to say too, kudos to Donna and Ty, because I didn't really know a whole lot about this process at all when I first started. In New York, it's a little bit different, and they dealt with a lot of questions from me over the past several months trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing. So I appreciate both of them kind of walking me through the process and holding my hand a little bit. So thank you guys.
Great. Thanks, Jared. Hey, Julia.
Hi, thank you for having us on tonight. I second everything that Jared said, and I'm happy to answer any questions. But I think he covered it for the most part.
Okay, great. So the The letter from the first selectman refers to the general statutes 8-24G, which is the same statute that we, and correct me, Ty, if I'm incorrect, it's the same statute that we review, that requires us to review the capital budget annually, to just to make sure that the projects being proposed in the capital budget sort of are in line with what the POCD says.
That's correct. That's your process. So now
So-
this is a little bit more of a refined review to when the project comes to fruition, make sure that this is what is in line with the POCD. So
So Adam looked like he started to say something and then, no, okay, so.
No.
Fine. So the, so in Ty's staff report near at the bottom, the last paragraph, considerations of the commission, she says, Ty says, when reviewing this application, the commission shall consider the goals set forth in the POCD. Section 5 of the POCD discusses development dash infrastructure with objectives to seek to provide for infrastructure facilities and services important to the community. Kent Common Park is noted in section 5.1 as one of these facilities. Kent Common Park Playground is identified as an issue to be considered through 2035. So from my perspective, this project, we felt as if it fit within the plan of conservation and development before we updated the plan of conservation and development. Now that this project is coming to fruition, it seems to very clearly fit with our with the town's new plan of conservation and development. So it seems to fit as far as I'm concerned. It seems to match with what we had hoped as we discussed the plan of conservation and development with all of the stakeholders, including Parks and Rec. Any other Ed?
I just want to ask one question. I don't understand the POCD policy is, shouldn't this policy then be done before the capital plan is approved? So a project like this doesn't go all the way through to the end and the money be available, then all of a sudden have questions about it? Could there be maybe one before the process and after?
there is.
And there
Okay.
is, and that's what we do, Ed. So this project has been on the capital plan for, I think the first $50,000 came available 2 years ago, which would have meant that it showed up on the capital plan 7 years ago, and the
Right.
second
A long time.
$50,000 came available last year, right? So we did review this as part, we had the opportunity to review this every year as it went through the
Okay,
plan. So, but that's a good point, Ed. Absolutely. That's doesn't make any sense to review this once they're about to lick and stick the proposal.
right. Okay, thank you. I was just wondering, because I'd never heard of it before either. That's all.
I had a quick question. And I just looked quickly at the proposal. And I'm sure it's there, but I didn't see it. Is this handicap accessible for kids that,
Yes, it is. So it's ADA compliant. Now, there is a difference that should be noted between a 100% accessible playground and an ADA compliant playground. A 100% accessible playground means that in theory, someone in a wheelchair can move about through the entire playground. That this playground is not that. That would come at a premium and expense that far exceeded our budget, but it is ADA compliant, which means that it does, obviously it complies with the standards set forth by the Americans with Disabilities Act.
and does that mean that there's something a child could play on?
Yes,
was
yeah,
happening.
that means that there are elements that can be played on that the person can move about the playground, but not necessarily, use all elements. So for example, there are several sets of stairs that go all the way up. There's a 10-foot landing actually on this, so it's a relatively large playground. And unfortunately, you do need to be able to ascend the stairs to reach the top. There are things like that. However, once again, between the surfacing and, several elements, we even have an ADA compliant swing as well that will be installed. So there are a number of features that can be taken advantage of.
And you talked about the surfacing. What material is that going to be?
That's going to be engineered wood fiber. So it's,
What fiber?
yeah. Anyone else have any questions? Or?
Commission members? Then Ty, is this a motion to accept the referral, to approve the?
It's a motion to respond with a positive referral to the Board of Selectmen's request, if that's your pleasure.
Great. So do we have a motion for a positive referral in reference to the Kent Commons Playground project?
I'll make that motion of a positive referral to the presentation that was given.
I'll second the motion.
Karen can.
Thanks, Wes. Thanks, Karen. Any other questions or further discussion? Then I would call the vote. All those in favor, so signify by raising your hand and or saying aye.
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 That carries unanimously. Motion carries.
Thank you all very much. Very much
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Yeah.
Thank
course.
you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep up the good work, Jared and Julia. You watch all your meetings and it's doing a great job.
Thank you. We appreciate that. And hopefully we'll have some more projects coming your way in the near future. So
Excellent.
well,
All right.
take care, everyone.
Okay, so agenda item number 7 is the staff report. Ty, is anything to add?
Yeah, I had one interesting question that I would love the commissioner's opinion on, an interpretation of the regulations. I had a request to use an Airstream as a farm stand. So according to your section 3231 of your regulations number 5, it defines what a farm stand should be. The square feet and the size does fall in line with an Airstream. It requires that it shouldn't be a permanent structure, and an Airstream would not be, but I know that that's not a traditionally what you would think of as a farm stand. But then if you drop down to 3231 number 10, it speaks to the storage of recreational vehicles. And your regulations do not allow recreational vehicles to be stored in the front of a property where a farm stand would be located. So I'm kind of in a weird little dilemma as to whether this would be something that you would think would be permissible. I feel like it's something that could certainly be sensitive. I'd love your opinion.
We also don't allow trailers.
Not in the front of the property.
Well, we don't allow a trailer, period, but I don't know if this qualifies as the kind of trailer that we don't allow.
I mean, like, you don't allow to
Trailer.
live in a trailer, but like to store one in the rear, it seems that that's permissible.
And Ty, this is in the rural zone?
Yes, yes.
It's not really the storage, right? I mean, we're not storing recreational vehicles, boats, or camping trailers, which is permitted by right. But they have to be visually screened from view. Shall be right. No such recreational vehicle shall be stored in front unless visually screened from view from the street. So I don't know, it doesn't, I'm not sure that this is the storage, it's certainly the use of it.
Yeah, I mean, the proposal is to kind of rehab this Airstream into something that would be a farm stand. So in a sense, it would no longer really be a recreational vehicle because it would be gutted and be, you know, set up in a farm stand kind of way. I don't
But does
know.
that mean that people are gonna have to, are they setting up this trailer in front? And people are gonna have to walk into this trailer?
No, I don't think that's the proposal. That's not my sense. I feel like it would be very much like a farm stand,
So
the
they cut
way
in
that they would rehab
space?
it.
Well,
I'm sorry?
I think we're getting hung up on Airstream. If you wouldn't have said Airstream and we had a trailer, then there's no, Airstream is a brand name. So it kind of gives you an image, that's all. It's not
But
the use.
it's still my same questions, though. I'm curious if, are they, so is this gonna be a farm stand and that they're gonna cut the face of it off and it's gonna be open, or is this, or do they want to set up a trailer in front of their property and put the goods that they want to sell inside of it, so the public has to go into this trailer?
I don't think the public's going into the trailer. The story is that a tree had hit this Airstream or trailer or whatever you want to call it. So I do believe that the intention is to kind of modify it in a way where it would be used as a farm stand, as a traditional farm stand, but it just won't look like a traditional farm stand. You're not really the aesthetics police, but at the same time, I just think it could potentially be sensitive, so I just wanted to run it by you.
I think they
Do
need
we
to-
have, size,
more.
excuse me, do we have size requirements?
You do, and I, just looked up the basic size of an Airstream, and it does fall in within those requirements. So it seems to fit.
Well, there's a lot of sizes of Airstreams. They're not all the same size.
I'll
Yeah,
make sure that
more
it does
than
if that's the case.
But I think that I think you would need to know more, or the commission needs to know more. I'm leery about having a trailer set up for people to have to walk into. And I know that's not your feeling about what's going to happen, but I think we need to know, right?
I absolutely, I mean, this is not, I'm more or less trying to pick your brain to interpret the regulation. It's not something that would necessarily come before the commission, and I would make sure that it does fit. If it's something that you feel like you can use anything as a farm stand, as long as it fits the criteria, that's kind of what I want to hear from you, is that if you're okay with, as long as it fits the criteria, and the general picture of what somebody would commonly think that it would look like doesn't so much matter, then we're good. But if you feel otherwise, that a trailer can't be in, a farm stand, then and it should more apply to the number 10 criteria, then there's, then I have to tell them that they can't do it.
Yeah, I think a farm stand is a use, not an aesthetic.
Okay.
That's what I would think.
And if you follow along those lines, then, 3231 5, which is permitted accessory uses and structures permitted by right in the rural residential zone, a farm stand up to 144 square feet in area when accessory to a farm, provided that the stand is limited to sale of agricultural products produced on the premises, located in an area with adequate access, sightlines, and parking, does not have a permanent foundation, no electricity, lighting, or plumbing is provided, and the structure doesn't exceed 15 feet. So, that's what our regulations say.
Okay. So, I mean,
If
that's
somebody
what I
had
wanted to hear.
if somebody had a hay wagon that they pulled out in front to lay out their goods for sale, we would never think twice about it.
No, I
Okay.
mean, I shouldn't have said Airstream.
Yeah, the thing is, I just know somebody's gonna drive by and it's gonna trigger, something at some point. So I just wanted to feel secure in what your intentions are with that regulation.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and I was going back and forth, Ty, with this and wondering whether whether we should not be looking at number 10, but we should be looking at 3233 of farmstand not otherwise in compliance with section 3231. But it's nothing that says a trailer as a farmstand is not in compliance with 3231. So I think certainly that's where I'm landing now, at least preliminarily, right?
Sounds good. Thank you. That's good advice. So the only other thing, that I have to report is that, it's budget time, so we're working on, the budget and the land use office, land use and building office. Doing our best to kind of just hold the line. There's a couple projects and goals that we have in mind. One of them is, an online permitting system. So we've been interviewing a couple different options with regard to that. That, we'll present and see if, that's something the town wants to head toward. Definitely looking into enhancing our DIS. Kind of using the money that I think we can, just repurpose some of the funds for mapping rather than, it's not utilized all that often, the hard maps. So that's been funded consistently, and I think it can be, put in that direction. So pretty much that's the big things. Everything else is little. There's an issue with our fee schedule. It hasn't been updated since I think 1997. So when it comes to legal notices, the cost of the fee for the applications for like special permits the cost of the applications are a fraction of what it costs the town to process due to the publications we have to do. So that line has to be increased, and at the same time, I'm going to ask the town if they want to reevaluate the fee schedule. That has to be done by town ordinance at town meeting. So it's a big deal. It's not easy to do, but I think it might be time to do it.
Good.
Okay. Thanks, Ty. And I would suggest that there are no reports of officers and committees. But I would ask that everybody take a look at your schedule for next Thursday and see whether 5 o'clock works for our special meeting, so we don't conflict with the annual town meeting. That starts at 7. So if we could start at 5 and then break and then all pretend like we're Reservoir Dogs and run over to the town hall for the town meeting, that would be great. So take
So
a
we'll
look.
just say we need 2 hours.
Say it again, Wes?
We'll just say we need 2 hours to complete the meeting.
That's right, or less, right? Because we need time to drive over. Okay, then agenda item 9A is administrative permits and certifications, certificates of compliance. Any questions on that? And then the budget, actual versus budgeted. And we are, what, 2/3 of the way through?
You're halfway. Well, based on this, yeah, not yet. This ended in November. That was the most recent.
Oh, right, okay. Any questions or comments? And then I know that we have to go into executive session, so I would look for a motion to go into Can we move to go into executive session for all three of these and discuss them sequentially?
Yes,
All
I
right,
think
so
that's
would-
what you do.
Great,
That's
I
what
would
we
look
always
for
do.
that motion.
Made. Motion made.
Second,
Great. Okay, so we're
second,
coming out of executive session at 9:53 PM. And we are moving on to agenda item number 13, 14, and 15, which relate to the discussions regarding possible actions on the pending litigation that are listed in the agenda.
I'll make a motion for all three, 13, 14, and 15, that we follow our attorney's guidelines as discussed.
And I look for a second.
Second,
Great. Thanks, Daryl. Thanks, Adam. All those in favor, or I'm sorry, any further discussion? Then all those in favor so signify by raising your hand and are saying aye.
Aye.
And motion carries. And that brings us to the agenda item that we've been looking for. So I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Made.
all right. Good night, you all.
Good night.
Okay,
Good
great. Thanks,
night.
everybody, for sticking with it.
Good
It was a
night,
good meeting.
everybody.
It was, I love you guys.